My wife texted, "Stuck in traffic, going to be hours late." I responded, "No problem, drive safe." Then I logged into the car's GPS tracker and saw her parked at her work husband's house 20 minutes ago, when I forwarded the live location to his wife. Alright folks, this is one of those stories where each time I tell it, someone says, "You should put this on Reddit." So, here I am. Fair warning, it's a roller coaster. I, 39M, have been married to Kelly, 38F, for 12 years. We have 2 kids, 10M and 7F, a mortgage, the whole suburban dream package. I work in construction management, she's in corporate marketing. Up until about 6 months ago, I would have said we had a solid marriage. Not perfect, but stable. The kind where you finish each other's sentences and have inside jokes about the neighbor's weird garden gnome collection. The first warning sign came when Kelly started mentioning this guy named Derek from work. Just casual stuff at first. Derek said the funniest thing in the meeting today, or Derek's idea saved us so much time on this project. Nothing that would raise alarm bells on its own. Then the term work husband started making appearances. "Oh, Derek is basically my work husband. He knows exactly how I take my coffee and always saves me a donut from the morning meetings." I hate that term. Always have. It's one of those modern phrases that tries to normalize what previous generations would have immediately recognized as inappropriate. But I didn't make a big deal out of it. Trust is important, right? Around month 3 of the Derek Chronicles, Kelly started working late more often. Again, not unusual in her field. Marketing campaigns get hectic, deadlines loom, stuff happens. The late nights usually came with texts, "Swamped with the new client, probably here until 8, or "Team working late to finish the pitch, order pizza for the kids." Then the physical changes started. New haircut, new wardrobe, more makeup, more time at the gym. Classic signs, I know. But when you're in it, you tell yourself she's just practicing self-care or going through a phase. Fast forward to last Wednesday. Kelly texts me around 5:30 p.m. "Stuck in horrible traffic on the highway. Accident has all lanes blocked. Going to be hours late. Don't wait up for dinner." My response? "No problem. Drive safe." But something felt off. Traffic reports weren't showing any major accidents. So I did something I hadn't done before. I pulled up the app connected to our car's GPS tracker. We'd installed the system 2 years ago after her car was broken into. It's one of those services that helps recover stolen vehicles, but also has features like maintenance reminders and location tracking. We'd explicitly agreed at the time that both of us would have full access to the account for safety reasons. We'd both forgotten it existed until now. I opened the app, entered the password, and there it was. Her car wasn't on any highway. It was parked on a residential street about 30 minutes from our house. I zoomed in on the address and did a quick search. Guess who lives there? Derek. Derek and his wife Emily. I sat there staring at my phone, watching the little dot that represented my wife's car sitting in front of another man's house while she was supposedly stuck in traffic. The timestamp showed she'd been there for about 20 minutes when she sent me that text. My first instinct was to call her out immediately, but something stopped me. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was the voice of my friend Jake, who went through a similar situation last year and ended up with a restraining order for threatening behavior when he confronted his wife's lover at their workplace. So I took a deep breath and thought about my next move. I didn't have concrete proof of anything beyond a lie about her location, but that lie itself was pretty damning. That's when I remembered, Derek is married. I'd never met Emily, but Kelly had mentioned her a few times. Emily is so lucky. Derek built her a custom bookshelf for her birthday, or Derek and Emily are going to Cabo for their anniversary. A quick social media search gave me Emily's profile. We had 3 mutual friends, small world. Her profile showed a pretty blonde woman, always smiling, lots of couple photos with Derek, plenty of inspirational quotes about love and family. They looked like the perfect couple. I hesitated only briefly before sending her a direct message. "Hi Emily, you don't know me, but I'm Kelly's husband. I think we need to talk. My wife told me she's stuck in traffic, but her car's GPS shows she's been at your house for the last 20 minutes. Are you home right now?" I attached a screenshot of the GPS tracker showing Kelly's car location and timestamp. Then I waited, watching the screen to see if she'd read it. 5 minutes passed. Then the notification, "Emily is typing." Her response nearly knocked me off my chair. "I'm actually at my mother's house 30 miles away. Been here since noon helping her recover from surgery. Derek told me he was working late tonight. I'm looking at our security camera app right now, and yes, that's definitely Kelly's car in our driveway. And Derek's car is in the garage. This is interesting." She followed with a second message. "Give me 10 minutes. Those were the longest 10 minutes of my life. I paced around our kitchen, stopping occasionally to check that the GPS dot hadn't moved. It hadn't. Finally, Emily messaged again. "I just turned on the outdoor sprinkler system. We have a smart home setup I insisted on since Derek travels so much. If you check your wife's location in about 60 seconds, I bet it'll be moving." I stared at my phone in disbelief, then started laughing. This woman was a genius. Sure enough, about a minute later, the GPS dot began moving away from the house. Almost immediately, my phone buzzed with a text from Kelly. "You won't believe what happened. The traffic finally cleared, but then my GPS took me through a weird neighborhood, and someone's sprinklers went haywire and soaked the car. I'm drenched, going to stop at the gym to change into workout clothes I have in my trunk. Be home in about an hour." I didn't respond. Instead, I went back to my conversation with Emily. "The dot is moving, and my wife just texted she got soaked by someone's sprinklers and is going to the gym to change. Thank you for that. What's your plan now?" Emily, "Oh, this is just the beginning. I've been suspicious for weeks but had no proof. Derek's been working late at least twice a week lately. Always comes home showered. Says the gym at work was part of his new routine. I actually believed him. What about you?" We ended up exchanging phone numbers and talking for almost 2 hours, comparing notes, timelines, suspicious behavior. The pattern was clear. They'd been seeing each other for at least 2 months, possibly longer. By the time Kelly got home, exactly an hour and 10 minutes after her sprinkler text, Emily and I had a plan. Kelly walked in looking perfectly composed, hair done, fresh makeup, certainly not like someone who'd been caught in a surprise sprinkler attack. She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and launched into a dramatic retelling of her terrible commute and the bizarre sprinkler incident. I nodded along, asking all the expected questions. Which highway was closed? She said I-95, which hadn't had any major incidents that day. Whose house was it with the sprinklers? She claimed not to know, just some random neighborhood her GPS routed her through. Each lie dug her deeper. The next morning I acted completely normal. Made coffee, kissed her goodbye, told her to have a good day at work. Then I took the day off and met Emily for breakfast at a diner halfway between our homes. In person, Emily was even more impressive than over the phone. Calm, focused, with a glint of controlled fury in her eyes. She'd brought a folder with her, printouts of text messages she'd recovered from their cell phone account, credit card statements showing mysterious charges, calendar screenshots with suspicious work meetings highlighted. Derek's not very smart about covering his tracks, she explained. He uses the same password for everything, and he's linked his phone to our home computer. I've had access to his texts for weeks, but I was waiting for irrefutable evidence before making a move. Together we formulated what we called Operation Public Service Announcement. The goal wasn't just to expose them, but to do it in a way that would leave no doubt, no room for gaslighting, and ideally provide some measure of satisfaction for us. The plan hinged on one key factor: a company party scheduled at Kelly's workplace that Friday night. Spouses were invited. Derek would be there. Emily had been planning to attend with him. I was supposed to go with Kelly. Perfect timing. For the next 2 days, I maintained the status quo at home. Kelly seemed completely unsuspicious. If anything, she was especially attentive and affectionate, which I now recognized as guilt compensation. Friday arrived. Kelly spent extra time getting ready, choosing a new dress I'd never seen before. I complimented her sincerely. No point letting on that anything was amiss. We arrived at the venue, an upscale hotel with a ballroom rented for the occasion. Kelly immediately began scanning the room, then lit up when she spotted Derek. She tried to be subtle about it, but her entire demeanor changed. "There's Derek and Emily," she said casually. "Let me introduce you." We walked over to where Derek, tall, gym-fit, expensive watch, stood with Emily, who gave me a barely perceptible nod. Derek, Emily, this is my husband Mark, Kelly said. Derek shook my hand firmly. Great to finally meet you, man. Kelly talks about you and the kids all the time. I smiled. Funny, she talks about you all the time too. Derek's smile faltered slightly. Emily looped her arm through Derek's. Honey, why don't you get us some drinks? Kelly, would you mind showing me where the restroom is? As the women walked away, I engaged Derek in seemingly innocent conversation about his role at the company, how long he'd worked there, typical small talk. All the while, I was watching the time. Emily had said she needed exactly 7 minutes. At the 6-minute mark, I steered Derek toward a quieter corner of the room. So Derek, how long have you been sleeping with my wife? His face went through about 5 expressions in 2 seconds. What? Man, I don't know what you're talking about. Really? That's the route you're going? Because I have GPS records showing Kelly's car at your house on Wednesday when she told me she was stuck in traffic. And Emily has quite a collection of your text messages. Very explicit stuff. He paled, then rallied. Look, it's not what you think. We're just friends who... Who what? Friends who happen to get naked together when your wife is at her mother's and my kids are waiting for their mom to come home? Derek glanced around nervously. Keep your voice down, man. We can talk about this like adults. Oh, I am being an adult who caught his wife and her work husband in a lie. Speaking of which, I nodded toward the large screen at the front of the room where presentations were supposed to be shown later. It had just lit up with a PowerPoint slide that read, "A special presentation" in elegant font. Emily had returned and was standing near the AV booth. As the company's event coordinator, she had legitimate access to the presentation equipment for the evening. She caught my eye and pressed a button on her phone. The slide changed to show a text message conversation, one that was unmistakably between Kelly and Derek, with their names and profile pictures clearly visible. The content was explicit, discussing their Wednesday meetup and how they'd have to be more careful with locations since I had almost caught on once. The message was sent using the company's internal messaging system, which had clear policies stating that all communications were subject to monitoring and had no expectation of privacy. The room went completely silent. Then came the murmurs. Kelly, who had been chatting with colleagues across the room, hadn't noticed at first. Then, someone touched her arm and pointed. She turned, saw the screen, and her hand flew to her mouth. The slides continued, a curated selection of their exchanges on the company system, including date and timestamps. Nothing pornographic. Emily and I had agreed to keep it professional, but more than enough to make it clear what was happening. The final slide was simple. Any questions? Asked Derek or Kelly, or their spouses, who just found out. The company's HR director rushed to the AV station and shut down the presentation, but it was too late. Every person in that room had seen the evidence. Derek stormed over to Emily. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he hissed. Emily smiled serenely. "Nothing's wrong with me, not anymore. Your stuff will be on the front lawn by morning." Kelly approached us, tears streaming down her face. "Mark, I can explain." "No need," I said quietly. "Your location history already did." We left separately. Kelly tried calling me 17 times that night. I stayed at a hotel and turned off my phone. The aftermath was messy, as you'd expect. Kelly showed up at her parents' house where I'd taken the kids for the weekend. There was crying, pleading, promises to change. The kids were confused and upset. I maintained as much dignity as possible and kept them shielded from the worst of it. Over the following weeks, the standard separation chaos ensued. Kelly moved in with her sister. I filed for divorce. The kids stayed primarily with me since our house is closer to their school. Derek was fired immediately after a brief investigation. Turns out the company had a zero-tolerance policy about supervisors dating subordinates, which he'd conveniently failed to mention in all of this. Yes, he was technically her boss, adding another layer of inappropriateness to the whole thing. He also had 2 previous warnings in his HR file about professional boundaries, which sealed his fate. Kelly faced disciplinary action too, including a formal reprimand and a 30-day probation period. She wasn't fired immediately due to company policy differences between supervisors and subordinates in these situations. After the investigation concluded, she was transferred to a different department with a demotion. Emily and I kept in touch, supporting each other through the parallel divorce proceedings. She handled hers with the same efficiency she'd shown with the sprinkler system. Derek apparently didn't even contest her terms after she presented his lawyer with the complete file of evidence she'd gathered. Kelly eventually admitted the affair had been going on for nearly 4 months. All those late nights at work, you guessed it. The classic cover story. 4 months after what Emily and I now call D-Day, something unexpected happened. Emily asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime. Not as divorce support buddies, but as a date. I was hesitant at first. The whole bonding through shared trauma thing seemed like shaky ground for a relationship. Plus, both our divorces were still in process, though nearing completion. But coffee turned into dinner, and dinner turned into weekend hikes with my kids, who adored her immediately. 6 months after D-Day, with both divorces finalized for about a month, we're officially dating. It's been surprisingly healing for both of us. We joke that our exes gave us the world's most twisted introduction service, but sometimes something good can come from something terrible. Kelly is seeing a therapist and working on herself, which I respect. We're establishing a co-parenting relationship that, while not warm, is functional. The kids are adapting better than I expected, though there have been some tough conversations and tears along the way. As for the infamous GPS tracker, I still have the app on my phone, not because I don't trust Emily, I do, completely, but because it's a reminder. Trust is vital, but so is keeping your eyes open to reality. And sometimes reality sends you a warning through an app you almost forgot you had. The company party lives on in corporate legend, apparently. Emily still has friends there who tell her the story has become shorthand for workplace relationship disasters. Don't pull a Derek and Kelly is now cautionary advice given to new employees. So that's my story. Trust your instincts, check the GPS once in a while, and if you ever need to expose a cheater, PowerPoint presentations are remarkably effective. Update. Thanks for all the supportive comments. To answer the most common questions. 1. Yes, I had full legal right to access the GPS tracker. The car is jointly owned, and the tracking service was in both our names with mutual consent when installed. We specifically discussed and agreed that either of us could access it at any time for safety reasons. 2. For those asking why I didn't confront Kelly immediately, instead of plotting revenge. Experience has taught me that cheaters will deny and gaslight when confronted without overwhelming evidence. The public exposure wasn't my first choice, but after learning how long and calculated their deception had been, Emily and I decided they deserve the consequences of their actions being made public. Not proud of it, but not apologizing either. 3. Several people asked about Kelly's job. She still works at the same company, but was demoted and transferred to another department. The different treatment, compared to Derek being fired, was due to company policy that holds supervisors to stricter standards than subordinates in these situations. Plus, Derek had prior warnings in his file. 4. To the folks suggesting Emily and I planned this all along or were having our own affair, absolutely not. We'd never met or communicated before that first message I sent her about the GPS location. Our relationship developed months later after both divorces were well underway. 5. For those asking about the presentation's legality, the messages shown were sent using the company's internal communication system, which has a clear policy that all messages can be monitored and have no expectation of privacy. Emily, as the event coordinator, had legitimate access to the AV equipment. We consulted with her attorney beforehand to ensure we weren't crossing any legal lines. 6. For those worried about the kids, they're in therapy, and we're all working through this as healthily as possible. They spend alternating weekends with Kelly, and she has dinner with them one night during the week. It's not ideal, but we're putting their well-being first. Regarding Emily and me, yes, it's somewhat ironic that we found each other through our ex's affair. We've discussed this at length with our respective therapists. The difference is transparency and timing. Our relationship began after both divorces were well underway, not as a deceptive side activity while pretending to be committed to other people. Emily wanted me to add her favorite moment from the aftermath. Derek tried to get his job back by claiming he was the victim of entrapment and privacy invasion. His appeal was denied when Emily produced evidence that he'd actually used company resources to plan their meetups, including booking a conference room for an hour when there was no actual meeting scheduled. As Emily puts it, he couldn't even cheat competently. Update 2, 6 months later. Since so many people have asked for an update, here's where things stand now. The divorces are both finalized. Mine was relatively straightforward once Kelly accepted that reconciliation wasn't happening. The custody arrangement remains the same. Kids primarily with me, regular visitation with her. Child support and asset division were settled without major drama. Emily's divorce was similarly clean-cut, helped by their prenup and the mountain of evidence she had compiled. Kelly has actually shown remarkable growth over the past months. After the initial denial and blame shifting, she's taken responsibility for her actions and is focused on rebuilding her relationship with our children. She's still in therapy and recently told me it was the best decision she's ever made. We're not friends, but we've developed a respectful co-parenting relationship that puts the kids' needs first. Derek, according to mutual acquaintances, moved to another state and is working for a competitor at a significantly lower position. He apparently tells people he left his previous job to pursue better opportunities, a creative reframing of being fired for cause. As for Emily and me, we're still together, and it's going surprisingly well. We moved in together 2 months ago, combining households in a new place that doesn't have painful memories for either of us. The kids have adjusted beautifully and often comment on how much calmer our home feels now. We're both very aware of how unusual our origin story is, and we've been careful to build our relationship on a solid foundation beyond our shared experience of betrayal. Regular therapy, both individual and couples, has been essential. We're determined not to let our past dictate our future. One unexpected benefit of our situation is complete transparency. After going through the worst kind of deception with our former spouses, we both value honesty above almost everything else. There's no room for game playing or manipulation between us. We've seen where that leads. The infamous GPS tracker has been removed from my phone. It served its purpose, but it belonged to a chapter of my life that's now closed. Trust has to be the default setting in a healthy relationship, and Emily and I are committed to giving each other that gift. Some people have asked if I regret the public exposure at the company party. Honestly, no. In retrospect, it was a defining moment that cut through months of potential gaslighting and trickle-truthing. It was dramatic, yes, but it was also definitive. There's something to be said for having 50-plus witnesses to the revelation. Makes it a lot harder for anyone to rewrite history later. Kelly admitted during one of our more candid co-parenting conversations that while the public humiliation was initially devastating, it forced her to confront her behavior without excuses. I couldn't tell myself it was just a mistake or a moment of weakness when everyone saw the pattern laid out like that, she told me. She's dating again now, cautiously, and says she's approaching relationships with a new level of integrity. The most surprising development came last month when my daughter asked if Emily would be my new wife someday. When I asked how she'd feel about that, she said, "I think it would be good." You laugh more now, out of the mouths of babes, as they say. So that's where we stand. Life after betrayal isn't easy, but it can be better than you might expect when the deception ends. For anyone going through something similar, my advice remains: trust your instincts, gather your evidence, and remember that how you respond to betrayal says more about your character than the betrayal itself says about your worth. The sprinkler system, by the way, became a running joke between Emily and me. For her birthday, I bought her a miniature lawn sprinkler for her desk. Sometimes the most devastating weapons are the ones that seem harmless until deployed with perfect timing.